This is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case.
That was candidate Joe Biden back in 2020. Today, it looks like he is aiming to become the second president, at least by his math, to limit asylum seekers in a similar way. I'm Ellison Barber in for Gadi, Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. Just days before his first presidential debate with former President Donald Trump and less than 6 months before the 2024 presidential elections, President Biden signing a rather dramatic executive action into law today. It would temporarily shut down the southern border to asylum seekers.
So today, I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border. Frankly, I would have preferred to address this issue through bipartisan legislation because that's the only way to actually get the kind of system we have now that's broken fixed.
The administration is getting praise as well as criticism for the move. Democrats argue that President Biden had no other option here because Republicans refused to work with them on bipartisan legislation. Republicans, on the other hand, they say the whole thing is too little too late and still not enough.
This is like turning a garden hose on a five-alarm fire. This play is too little, too late.
How obstinate Republicans have become, turning down any real opportunity for strong border legislation. The president is left with little choice but to act on his own.
So this is how the order will work. Officials, they will be given broad authority to deny asylum claims. If daily border crossings reach 2,500 a day or higher, those restrictions will be lifted when that number drops to 1,500. Right now, those numbers remain in the 4,000s. So what does that mean? Has the border already been closed? Let's bring in NBC News correspondent David Noriega, who is at the U.S.-Mexico border in California. David, walk us through what you were seeing there and this big question people have of what do these numbers mean? Is the border closed right now? How will this work moving forward?
Right. So this executive order is not set to take effect officially until tonight at midnight. So if we see any kind of immediate effect, it won't be until sort of overnight and into tomorrow morning. However, even then, it's very unclear that this will actually have any kind of dramatic immediate effect. There's a big gap between what this executive action does on paper and the way it's being talked about in Washington and what it will actually do here on the ground for a number of reasons. This isn't going to cause an actual immediate shutdown in any meaningful sense because migrants will still be able to cross the border onto U.S. soil where they'll be apprehended by Border Patrol and then put in removal proceedings. Some of those deportations, not for all migrants, but for potentially a substantial number of them, may now happen a lot faster. It will still take time for that change to actually deter future migrants. It is possible that we'll see a significant drop in numbers. If we do, it's more likely because migrant smugglers on that side of the fence often take a sort of wait-and-see approach to crack down efforts like this one. They sort of pause, stop sending people to the border in significant numbers, wait and see how the policy actually plays out, and then, depending on what they assess, start sending people across once again. So if we do see a drop in numbers, it won't be because of the immediate effect of this policy. It'll be because of decisions that smugglers are making on the other side of the line. One of the big factors here is that the U.S. doesn't have any more authority, won't have any more authority tomorrow than it did today to summarily expel people to Mexico the way it did under Title 42. It still has to deport people to their home countries, and that's time and resource intensive. Allison?
David, just looking at some numbers here, a lot of the ones that you mentioned, but border crossings, they are actually down right now compared to other peaks. And immigration, it is one of the top issues for voters. It has consistently been this election cycle and even prior to that. But Biden right now is polling low in comparison to former President Donald Trump on this issue. So just looking at all those numbers, the fact that border crossings are down, the fact that this is such a big political issue for a lot of American voters right now, it begs the question, is this something that's actually necessary or is this all political?
So the numbers are down border-wide, particularly from the record highs that they hit in December. Interestingly, they're actually up here in San Diego. The San Diego sector of the Border Patrol is the only sector along the border where numbers are actually up a little bit from where they were in December, from where they were last year. It's still true, though, Ellison, that the overall number of crossings is high by historical standards. The drops that we have seen are largely attributed by U.S. officials and experts to Mexican authorities cracking down on migrant routes, not to any particular action by the U.S. government itself. As to whether this is primarily political, I mean, there's no question that immigration and the border is a huge vulnerability for Biden and the Democrats in the elections. Like I said, there's also a significant gap between what this executive order does on paper and what it allows, you know, people like President Biden and other Democrats to say is happening, such as a border shutdown that has potentially political consequences. We'll see how that plays out. There's, again, a difference between those political consequences and any material consequences here on the ground.
All right. David Noriega at the U.S.-Mexico border there in San Diego, California. Thank you. We appreciate it. We're going to turn now to Arizona, where today the state legislature passed a ballot measure that could become one of the toughest immigration laws in the country. The Republican-sponsored bill is called the Secure the Border Act, and it would allow local law enforcement to arrest migrants they suspect of crossing the border illegally. Typically, that's something that falls under the jurisdiction of federal authorities. It's a big change for the area, but it is not over yet. Arizona voters do have the final say in November. NBC's Alex Tabbitt has this report.
The Arizona state legislature just advanced a controversial immigration bill. Sponsored by Republicans and known as the Secure the Border Act, HCR 2060 puts immigration policy on the ballot in November.
We are putting border security policy to the voters.
And bypasses the need for Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs' signature, who's come out against it. It would require welfare programs to use the federal E-Verify system to check recipients' immigration status, mandate employers to use E-Verify for contractors, and the biggest point of contention, allow state and local law enforcement officials to arrest people who cross the border illegally, a job courts have ruled falls to the federal government.
The Biden administration's failure to take care that the laws of Congress be faithfully executed has a lot to do with it.
Critics of HCR 2060 likening its ramifications to Arizona's controversial 2010 immigration policy, SB 1070. A policy that sparked nationwide protests.
State of Arizona finding itself at the center of a growing storm over its tough new immigration law.
And allowed police to question the immigration status of Arizonans.
Critics accuse Arizona authorities of racial profiling.
Known then as the Show Me Your Papers law, SB 1070 led to thousands of Latinos in the state living in fear.
We had to fear getting out of our house. We had to fear going to the grocery store, fearing going to school.
Republican state legislators like Alex Collin say HCR 2060 is different to SB 1070.
But SB 1070 had a Show Me Your Papers provision. Then I went and read this HCR. It's not in there.
But Democrats like State Senator Flavio Bravo, who represents one of the most diverse districts in the state, think vaguely worded language in the bill could leave his constituents living in fear.
They shouldn't have to live in fear that they would be detained or apprehended or asked about their immigration status when they're just trying to work and provide for their families.
The fate of Arizona's immigration policy now up to the voters in November.
It joins us now with more. Alex, walk us through what people should be paying attention to next. Is there any chance this could be taken to the courts prior to the election?
Ellison, not only could there be legal challenges to HCR 2060, that's something that the Republican legislatures here in Arizona were actively considering while crafting this piece of legislation. So the most controversial part of this bill is the part that allows state and local law enforcement to arrest and detain undocumented border crossers or people they suspect of being undocumented border crossers. That's what critics are pointing to say that there's a potential there for racial profiling. That provision in HCR 2060 is almost copy and paste from SB 4, a piece of legislation in Texas. So what the Republican legislators who crafted this bill wrote in the text is HCR 2060's provision, which allows the arrest and detainment of undocumented border crossers, can't go into effect at least 60 days after SB 4 is upheld by the courts. That's their attempt to mitigate for any legal challenges. Allison?
All right, Alex Tabbitt in Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you. Over in Delaware, a rather dramatic second day in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial. During a break in opening statements, Biden's wife, Melissa Cohen Biden, confronted a former Trump aide named Garrett Ziegler. He was part of an effort back in 2020 to make the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop public. When she confronted him, she said this, quote, "You have no right to be here, you Nazi piece of blank." Ziegler told NBC News, quote, "For the record, I am not a Nazi. I'm a believer in the U.S. Constitution." That same laptop, by the way, it was in the courtroom today as prosecution called their first witness, an FBI agent, and also introduced 75 pages of text messages as evidence. The goal here is to show the depths of Hunter Biden's drug addiction and confirm his possession of a gun at the time. This is the first time the child of a sitting president has been tried for federal crimes. Hunter Biden is facing 3 felony gun possession charges, and that carries a maximum sentence of 25 years. Let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Mike Mimily. Mike, let's just start with this exchange that played out between moments inside of the courtroom. I presume this took place in the hallway. It sounds pretty dramatic. Walk us through what happened and exactly who are these people and why did this seem significant?
Yeah, Allison, I'll set the scene for you because this is a public building. The trial is open to the general public, and it's a small courtroom. And so those people who are inside have a chance to look around and get a measure of who else is in the room. For the most part, it's reporters like myself and members of the family. But Garrett Ziegler, who did serve in the Trump administration working on trade policy, was another person who has been here for each of the day's proceedings. And he's a familiar name and face to the Biden family. And so when there was a break in the action, we saw Hunter Biden's current wife, Melissa Cohen Biden, confront him, tell him that he shouldn't be there, and not so many kind words. And this was really speaking to the back and forth that's already been underway between these two. When Ziegler left the White House in the Trump administration, he started this company that created an online searchable database of the infamous Hunter Biden laptop. That laptop, the contents of it, this whole episode has really been at the root of a lot of stressful moments for the Biden family. And so seeing him in that room at a very stressful time for this family, if there was any indication, any more need for evidence of what the toll is going to be on this family, you saw it. Now, Ziegler, in addition to testifying for the fact that he's not a Nazi and speaking with our colleague Sarah Fitzpatrick, who has been really owning this story for months, he said when he was asked why he was in the room today, he simply said it was prudent for me to do so, Ellison.
Talk to us about where things stand with the case and what the strategy might be for both the prosecution and the defense. I'll remind viewers, Hunter Biden did have a plea agreement related to these charges and now separate tax-related allegations of tax fraud. That case is separate, going to take place out in California. But that plea deal, once it collapsed, he pled not guilty to these gun charges. Any indication that that past plea deal might come back up in this case?
Well, there are certainly some legal analysts who are suggesting that would be prudent for Mr. Biden, but it is important to make that point because the facts of this case seem very cut and dry. And that was exactly what the prosecution was efforting to do today. They simply feel that they need to establish the timeline of Hunter Biden's addiction, which and they used his own words, the audiobook in which he described some of the episodes at the same time, October of 2018, when he was dealing with drugs. In fact, talking about the fact that it was his superpower that he could find drugs in any city, to tie it to the date when he purchased this gun and show that he then therefore knowingly lied when he filled out that form. Now, on the part of the defense, their task here is to simply do their best to poke as many holes to create reasonable doubt among the jury pool about whether Hunter Biden, in his own mindset, may have actually knowingly lied in that situation. At one point, Abby Lowell, Hunter Biden's attorney, did call upon the jury, some of whom had said during the questioning to be selected for the jury that they knew members of their family. They had friends who were dealing with addiction itself. Said, put yourselves in their mindset to think that in his own mind he was not an addict at the time, therefore he did not break the law.
And, Mike, there's been so many headlines related to the personal nature of this case, the fact that we will likely hear from a former romantic partner of Hunter Biden's who also is was married to his late brother, Beau Biden. Hallie, walk us through some of the aspects of that part of this case. What do we expect to hear in the coming days?
Yeah, of course, we saw again Dr. Jill Biden sitting behind her son for part of the day. She had to return to Washington for an event, as well as other members of the family. There were some emotional moments in the courtroom as, they heard their brother, their son's voice in his audiobook describing some of his dark moments, but also as they were describing in the prosecutor's opening statements, the testimony we expect to hear in the coming days from Hallie Biden, who is Beau Biden, Hunter's brother's widow, and with whom he had a romantic relationship as well, that she also did drugs with Hunter Biden. It's going to be a very difficult moment, especially when you consider that there's going to have to be a cross-examination by Hunter Biden's attorney of both Hallie Biden and his ex-wife, Kathleen Buell, who we expect to be on the witness stand to start the day tomorrow. This is something that the president, as we saw, put out that statement yesterday of support for his son, acknowledging this is a difficult moment. He's going to be traveling tonight overseas for the better part of the week, but we expect he'll be getting updates from the many family members who have been and will continue to be, we're told, attending this trial each day until it concludes. Allison.
All right. White House correspondent Mike Nimely in Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you. If you have AT&T or Verizon, you might have had some trouble making phone calls today. Both companies reporting issues just a few hours ago. AT&T saying, quote, "Our network is not experiencing a nationwide outage. There is a nationwide issue that is affecting the ability of some customers to complete calls between carriers. We are working closely with Verizon to determine the nature of the issue." They added that this did not impact 911 calls. Verizon, they claim that their network is operating normally, saying this, quote, "Some customers, primarily in the Northeast and Midwest, are experiencing issues when calling or texting with customers served by another carrier." We will bring you more updates on this when we have it. Right now, millions of people from Texas to California are starting to see the first stretch of a dangerous heat wave that's expected to last until Friday at least. Temperatures are soaring into the triple digits much earlier than usual for this time of year. By Thursday, cities like Phoenix, Palm Springs, and Las Vegas, they could see temperatures up to 112 and 113 degrees. As temperatures go up, so does the concern for fires. Already today, firefighters in Sacramento contained a brush fire that got a little too close to homes in that area. And over in Tracy, California, firefighters there managed to get control of the massive Corral fire, containing about 90% of it since it first started on Saturday. But officials are staying on high alert there in case more fires spark up. Our team is tracking the latest conditions tonight. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns is standing by with the forecast. But first, let's go to NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin. She is in Sacramento, California. Dana, there's an excessive heat warning where you are. First of all, we really appreciate you and your team being out there reporting for us. But talk to us about the very real risks that come with a heat wave. I mean, we talk about heat so much because it kills more people than any other weather-related event. How are people there managing to stay cool?
Yeah, you're right. You know, cooling stations have opened up across the Southwest to try to protect people that are outside and maybe don't have a place to go. And you talk about those dangerous conditions. Maricopa County, Arizona's largest county, had some 645 deaths, heat-related deaths, last year alone. So these sort of conditions are really detrimental to your health. They can range from dehydration to heat stroke to even death. I spoke to a doctor at UC Davis here in Sacramento, and he told me that when you have these earlier heat waves, people, they're not used to it. So the impacts of this weather can hit you a lot harder than you might assume. Listen to what else we talked about moments ago. What are people coming into your office saying and into the emergency room saying?
Well, it's definitely a spectrum of disease. So a lot of times we'll have people come in after fainting, or they just feel weak and dizzy and don't know why, have muscle cramps, and that's kind of heat exhaustion. But then we'll also occasionally get the person that was out for too long, didn't drink enough fluids, and has actual heat stroke where they're confused, even to the point where they could be unconscious.
And so obviously the message here is to stay hydrated, stay indoors, and to keep small kids and pets indoors, especially as we make it through the rest of this week, where you're going to see triple-digit temps in several cities up and down the West Coast. Ellison?
Dana, the fire risk there, it's going to be pretty high throughout the week. How are officials staying prepared for that?
You know, we spoke to CAL FIRE officials yesterday, and they were the ones that tackled that massive corral fire that happened over the weekend. They say they have crews on standby waiting to respond because of days like today where you've got triple-digit temperatures here in Sacramento. We're having up to 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts. These are ripe conditions for wildfires to pop up. You talked about the wildfire that was put out earlier here in Sacramento. So these things can pop up very quickly, and when you have the wind driving them, it can create a very fast-moving wildfire that easily goes out of control. So right now, crews are monitoring, and they're reminding people on days like today, you don't want to toss a cigarette out the window. You don't want to park your vehicle running on dry grass that could possibly spark a fire. So these are all important reminders, especially as we head through the rest of this week. Ellison?
Dana Griffin in Sacramento, thank you. Let's bring in NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, what is driving this heat wave? And in terms of numbers, how hot could it get?
Yeah, this is in some areas unprecedented for so early in our summer season, which we consider, June, July, and August. Now, the reason it's so hot is that the jet stream has left us. That's typical. It usually goes north and eventually, just a little earlier this year. And everyone's wondering, does this mean the whole summer is going to be this hot? Well, for now it is, but it does look like it will give a break next week. So the high pressure is what controls everything. The jet stream, you can see it up here, all the way into Canada, British Columbia. So the air is just sitting here. Obviously, this time of year, the sun is just baking down on the ground. You know how early the sunrise is and how late the sunset is. And so the next few days, this is just going to build and build and get hotter and hotter until it looks like peak on Thursday, Friday, then a little bit, waning as we head towards the weekend. But the high temperatures will be about 15 to 20 degrees warmer than they should be for this time of year. We got 32 million people in this. So it goes from South Texas with some warnings for areas from San Antonio southwards, and then through the desert southwest and the valley locations in California. And today was exceptionally hot. San Angelo was 111 degrees. That's one of the hottest temperatures that's ever recorded in the month of June, 5th highest ever. And so tomorrow, a little cooler in San Angelo, but then we really start turning it up. Sacramento goes up to 104, 19 degrees warmer than it should be. And as we go into Thursday, that's the day, Elson, that's the day when we should break records in like Phoenix, Las Vegas, Fresno. So that's the day to be careful.
All right, you already touched on it. A lot of people are wondering, will the whole summer be this hot? I'm going to put you on the spot again and say, is there anything from a science standpoint as a meteorologist where you look at, okay, this heat wave happening this early in the summer, and it tells us that maybe this summer will be hotter than the record-breaking summer we had last year?
Oh, I know. That's what a lot of people are remembering, right?
Last summer, brutal
in the West. I mean, so the Southwest and South Texas, that's the same areas that right now everyone's like, oh, my goodness, like it's so exceptionally hot. So this heat wave, as I've mentioned, it does appear that it will go through the upcoming weekend, Saturday, Vegas 107, then it kind of tapers off a little bit. But what we need is pattern change. So last year we got stuck in the weather pattern. It didn't change. Indications are this summer that it will change, that we are going to cool things off eventually. But, we're off to a blistering hot start in June, and everyone's fear is, memories are short. Yeah. Everyone's like, don't do this again.
So and we all need to pay attention and learn more about weather patterns,
yes.
And then maybe we'll have a good guess. Bill Cairns, thank you. We appreciate it. All right, don't go anywhere because we are just getting started. Up next, Attorney General Merrick Garland testified on Capitol Hill today, and things got pretty heated. NBC's Sahil Kapoor has the details. Plus, a war of words broke out today between President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What was said and how it's impacting ceasefire talks. And later this hour, the future of the road. An NBC News exclusive with the CEO of General Motors on when more EVs will be hitting the road and how much it'll cost you.
We're committed to this technology, getting it right, and offering the consumers something that's going to make their life better.
Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. An FDA panel says MDMA should not be used as a treatment for PTSD. The ruling came down just a few hours ago. It's a potential setback for advocates. Some have said this use of a psychedelic would be beneficial in treating the disorder. But the panel cited flawed data in the study, some questionable research, and the potential for heart problems in their ruling. Some disturbing video shot in New York City on Sunday. City Park police officers forcibly arresting a 14-year-old girl said to be with her mother, a migrant who was illegally selling fruit in a park. The scuffle happening as the officers used handcuffs and one of them at least, wrapped his arms around the girl. Multiple people appeared to get involved as they tumbled on the ground. Officers say they were attempting to confiscate perishable items at the time and that her parents were working and operating an unlicensed cart. Mayor Adams has said the girl's mother is a repeat offender. He claimed the family was back in the same spot selling fruit on Sunday, but amid the criticism, he has also said the city is investigating. Wisconsin's attorney general filed felony forgery charges against 2 attorneys and an aide who worked for former President Donald Trump. They're accused of helping to submit paperwork that falsely said Trump won the battleground state back in 2020. There's been similar charges in states like Arizona and Michigan, part of the so-called fake elector scheme. Look at this fight right here. It broke out in Arizona at a national park. That is a bobcat poking at a rattlesnake, which is not the smartest idea. And the rattlesnake, it strikes back as the two continue to go at it. You can see the bobcat jumping up in the area as it keeps trying to swat at the snake. And NASA's Hubble telescope is remaining operational, but on a limited scale. NASA says it's moving to what's called one gyro mode, basically meaning there will be fewer observations. It's because of an equipment failure, which has been acting up over the last few months. NASA officials say the Hubble should keep making discoveries at least the next decade or so. Today, Attorney General Merrick Garland testified at a House Judiciary Committee hearing, and the country's usually mild-mannered top lawyer did not hold back. NBC Capitol Hill correspondent Sahil Kapoor has more.
Ellison, it was a contentious hearing at the Republican-led House Judiciary Committee today as Attorney General Merrick Garland faced aggressive questioning from lawmakers about a range of issues in the wake of former President Trump being indicted on 34 counts of felonies in New York for falsifying business records and facing more counts elsewhere, including federally. Garland emphatically rejected conspiracy theories about the DOJ manipulating Manhattan DA's prosecution of Trump on falsifying business records. He defended the DOJ as operating fairly and promised not to be cowed by political pressure or political threats. He also made clear that he won't hand over the audio tapes of President Biden's interviews with the special counsel, despite the House Republican threat to hold him in contempt for that refusal. Take a listen to what Merrick Garland said.
I view contempt as a serious matter, but I will not jeopardize the ability of our prosecutors and agents to do their jobs effectively in future investigations. I will not be intimidated, and the Justice Department will not be intimidated. We will continue to do our jobs free from political influence, and we will not back down from defending democracy.
Now, the contempt vote has not been scheduled yet in the full House of Representatives, even though it has cleared committee several weeks ago. Garland argued that the transcripts are out there for anyone who wants to read them and that posting the audio would, quote, chill cooperation with the department in future investigations. He went on to argue that it could influence witnesses' answers if they thought the audio of their law enforcement interviews could be released publicly, could be broadcast to Congress. And he also said he has not listened to the tapes himself, and that was irrelevant to his determination. Garland further said he does not regret appointing Jack Smith as a special counsel who's investigating Trump. He said he's never spoken to Hunter Biden, who's on trial right now. That's the president's son, who's also being prosecuted by the DOJ alongside Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez, which to many in that party cuts against the argument that the DOJ is being weaponized for political purposes. Ted Lieu, a Democratic congressman, noted that under Trump's own Justice Department, several of his own allies were prosecuted, including Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, Roger Stone. Lieu went on to say, quote, "It is not the fault of the Department of Justice that Donald Trump has surrounded himself with criminals," unquote. Allison?
Sahil Kapoor on Capitol Hill. Thank you. Coming up next, the role of deepfakes in the biggest election on the planet. Our Janice Mackey-Freyer gives us insight into generated videos that spread across India. Could there be similarities in the U.S. ahead of November's presidential election? But first, you gotta see this. Fans love a good day of baseball under the lights, but what about baseball under no lights? That's what Cosmic Baseball is. It's played in the dark with glow-in-the-dark equipment. like glow-in-the-dark bases and jerseys. Even the balls glow in the dark. Last Saturday, the Tri-City Peppers, a Virginia-based college summer team, hosted the first-ever Cosmic baseball game, and they won 9-4. Even with the darkness, it's lighting up the baseball scene. Tickets to the first game sold out in a day. The Chili Peppers will have their next game next week, and we will be right back after this. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. Evacuations are underway in the Philippines after a volcano erupted overnight. Ash and steam filled the night sky near Mount Calon as hundreds of people escaped to evacuation camps. The Philippines is located in the Ring of Fire, and the volcano that exploded last night is among the country's most active. Over to Nigeria now, where all electricity and major airports closed down following a labor union strike. The national electricity grid was shut off by workers who also blocked off operators trying to restore power. People there are demanding wage increases as the country faces its worst cost of living crisis in decades. Hundreds of travelers were left stranded as airlines suspended flights. And it turns out the historical paintings damaged and rescued in that April Copenhagen fire can almost be fully restored. Conservators say they'll be able to repair the pieces of art so you won't be able to notice any damage, but it might come at a steep cost, as almost 350 artifacts now need fixing. And tennis superstar, Novak Djokovic has pulled out of the French Open after hurting his knee. It's a huge blow to Djokovic, who was looking to defend his title and stay first in the rankings. He'd been dealing with some knee issues before the competition. He even called for a medical timeout during his match against Francisco Cerundolo and took painkillers to come back and continue playing. Sharp criticism from President Joe Biden toward Israel's government. In an interview with Time magazine conducted last month but just released today, Biden suggested Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was prolonging the Israel-Hamas war to stay in power, telling the magazine, quote, "There is every reason for people to draw that conclusion." The comments come amid growing stress about that ceasefire proposal in the Middle East. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley has this report.
Yeah, so these comments from President Biden, they were actually made last week, but they were just published, and they really are the latest barb to emerge between President Biden in the United States and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. And in many ways, this is kind of the most personal. We've heard Biden criticize Netanyahu repeatedly over Netanyahu's conduct of the war in the Gaza Strip, his regard for civilians, while at the same time, Biden has always supported and said that the United States was fully behind Israel. We've seen a very, very public falling out in the last couple of months. But this is really the first time that we're seeing the U.S. president accusing Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, essentially of trying to exploit this situation to stay in power. It's a very, very serious allegation. But again, it's one that folks in the Middle East, including Israelis, say over and over and over again. And it comes at a very, very hard time for Israel's fight in the Gaza Strip. Israel just announced yesterday the death of 4 additional hostages who are being held in Gaza before the Israelis were able to save them. And that has become the real race against time among Israelis, trying to save what's thought to be nearly 80 hostages who are still thought to be alive. At the same time, the Israelis are trying to crush what is left of the militant group Hamas. And it looks as though the most recent negotiations to try to free these hostages and end the fighting is now no closer than it has been before to getting over the line. We just heard from Hamas that they wouldn't be able to sign on to any sort of accord that doesn't guarantee a full and permanent end to the fighting in the Gaza Strip. Now, this is something that the Israelis have repeatedly dismissed as a non-starter, and this has been very much to the impatience of the White House and the Biden administration.
Matt Bradley, thank you. In India, it looks like Prime Minister Modi is all set to wrap up a consecutive third term in office. But since his party lost a bunch of seats, he'll have to work with coalition partners for the first time since coming to power in 2014. However, the bigger story might be the role AI played in all of this and whether we could see the same thing play out here in the U.S. NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer has this story.
In a consequential year for global elections, few match the scale of India. Nearly 1 billion voters and over 700 political parties. While election-related deepfakes generated by artificial intelligence spread like wildfire across Indian social media. Like this video of a politician who died in 2018 and was digitally resurrected to endorse his son.
Hi, nice to meet you.
It's the AI handiwork of Senthil Nagayam. His company is at the forefront of a thriving but loosely regulated industry here, using AI tools to create deepfakes, mostly for films. But at a studio in Chennai, he recorded my voice, took photos and videos, and in a matter of hours produced a deepfake of me.
I'm Janice Mackey-Freyer, and I'm not running for office. But I'm doing this political ad to make a point, to show how easy it is for...
La mia voce e la mia immagine da catturare in un computer.
And with AI tools, I can
say
anything to anybody in any language.
You could make multiple videos with my likeness.
Literally, you have been cloned. It's like we have a seed and we can plant it anywhere. And we have way past the deepfake era and we have gone into superfakes.
That AI-driven content is appearing in elections around the world could be a sign of what's ahead for voters in the U.S.
If you have lots and lots of different models out there that can be used by bad actors for lots of bad stuff, it still has to get to people for it to matter. And that means that bad actors still have to go through the distribution channels that we're familiar with.
The bad actors aren't always, say, foreign governments looking to disrupt financial systems or national security. More often, AI-generated content happens at a local level, with text messaging or speech replacement that can be made to be believable.
And somebody like me, if I wanted to speak Hindi, if I wanted to speak Japanese, I could.
Speak Klingon.
And in a country as connected as India, tech platforms can become pipelines for disinformation. As a test, digital rights groups Access Now and Global Witness sent 24 fake election ads to YouTube and say they had every single video accepted.
If you don't try to combat the collection and misuse of data by tech platforms, it will feed this problematic, often toxic sort of AI growth ecosystem we're seeing.
The increasing use of AI-driven messaging also raises the risk of it becoming a normalized part of the election process, as deepfakes are set to transform the landscape for real.
I feel like I've been arrested.
Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Chennai, India.
Still ahead, a fraud trial, a bag of cash, and a dismissed juror. No, this is not the plot of a new thriller movie. We'll take you through the twists and turns of the real-life drama right after the break. Welcome back. Here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following. The former translator for the L.A. Dodgers star player Shohei Ohtani pleaded guilty today to bank and tax fraud charges. He allegedly stole $17 million from Ohtani to cover gambling debts. His sentencing is scheduled for October. And believe it or not, that is not the only baseball drama going down on the West Coast. Major League Baseball has banned a San Diego Padres player for life for allegedly betting on games. Tucupita Marcano was accused of gambling last season while he was on the Pittsburgh Pirates injured list. He's the first active player in over a century to be banned for betting on the sport. And last night, LAPD cleared out a short-lived pro-Palestinian tent encampment outside of City Hall. About 20 tents started going up yesterday afternoon. Police began clearing the area after midnight, saying that it was a, quote, non-permitted demonstration. A Minneapolis juror was dismissed this week from a high-profile fraud trial after someone allegedly tried to bribe her with cash. A lot of it. It is one of many trials in a case involving stolen funds during the pandemic. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett has this incredibly odd report.
Tonight, something a prosecutor called the stuff that happens in mob movies, as a Minneapolis jury heads into deliberations without 2 jurors, after someone allegedly tried to bribe one and a second juror was asked about it by her family. Photos from a search warrant filed by the FBI showing a big bag decorated with butterflies on the outside and $120,000 cash on the inside. According to the warrant, a woman showed up at the doorstep of Juror 52 on Sunday night with a bag, handing it to the juror's relative, saying it was a present for the juror, referencing her first name. The woman told the relative to tell Juror 52 to say not guilty tomorrow, and there would be more of that present. Juror 52 immediately called 911 to report the incident. Police finding $100, $50, and $20 bills.
Does this come off as a blatant attempt to tamper with the jury?
When we have someone interfering with the jury process, that is supposed to be sacrosanct. That is supposed to be something that is not touched throughout the trial. And this is really an interference into that.
In court, the defense attorney telling the judge the bag of cash is a, quote, troubling and upsetting accusation. A wild development after the 7-week-long trial over the alleged theft of COVID funds, the first of a chain of expected trials, and now a possible new crime under investigation.
And Mara Barrett joins us now. Mara, this is just insane. I mean, how would someone even know where the juror lived? I didn't even know you could get that much cash out in like 20s and hundreds. What is going on here and what happens next?
I mean, the cash is one question, right? But the most concerning part of this is the fact that we all think jurors are supposed to be anonymous. But in reality, in this case, the legal team and the defendants actually have access to the jurors' names and addresses. And so that's why the judge has since ordered all 7 defendants to be in custody until the verdict is read. And she's also confiscated all of their phones. Those 2 jurors that are now out of the jury pool have been replaced by alternates. And the judge has also ordered for the remainder of the deliberations for the jury to be sequestered. Now, Allison.
Wow. Maura Barrett, thank you. Before we go, it is time for the future of everything. Putting the X in explicit. Why you should expect to see much more adult content on Elon Musk's platform. We're breaking down the future of social media next. Now, for the future of everything, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, now X, is going all in on adult content. New terms of service officially allow nudity and, quote, sexual behavior with some safeguards, which we'll get into in just a moment. But here's the thing. Plenty of that kind of content already existed on Twitter. According to Reuters, the company estimated 13% of posts on the platform contained adult content. And that was back in 2022, long before Elon Musk took over. So what is new here? Well, first, there are now official policies for not safe for work stuff. But what is also new is the specific mention of AI-generated adult content, which is being allowed as long as it's marked as such and is, quote, consensually produced. Joining me now is CNBC contributor and columnist for the Wall Street Journal, Tim Higgins. Tim, thank you for being with us here. Take us through this, right? X is saying that there's going to be these safeguards in place to make sure the AI-generated content is marked. They're also saying there will be safeguards in place to make sure this sort of content is hidden from children and people who do not want to see it. How would those work? And do people close to this think those safeguards are going to be enough?
Well, it's probably one of these things where you opt into it. And I've heard from users who are concerned about this. And Elon was out there today talking about how this was a top priority, making sure that you as a user can say, I don't want this. I don't want to see this. And that, you know, that is an important step. Right now, if you've been on the X platform in recent weeks or months, there's a good possibility that maybe you've seen some racy or spicy content, if you will, in your replies or in other people's replies, especially as they try to trace that kind of engagement and user experience out there.
So in terms of regulators or possible government involvement here, this is a thing that we often see Congress have hearings to discuss, right? Especially if it is something in this social media and kids space or potentially in those 2 spheres. At what point do you think regulators would actually get involved if some of these safeguards maybe aren't working as planned?
Well, 2 big areas. One would be not content that's not consensual, and other content that is kiddie porn. These are 2 areas of great concern. But potentially the bigger risk here for X is that this kind of embrace, this official embrace of this kind of content scares off advertisers. Elon Musk's provocative stances over the last few months have really rattled some of those advertisers. We've seen a pullback. This could just be another log on that fire that makes advertisers worry that this is a kind of a platform that encourages the kind of content that they don't want to be near. Though I'll say, ex-executives would argue they have the tools to allow brands to say, this is the kind of content we want to be around, and if they don't want to be, again, around spicy content, well, then they can choose not to be there. But still, the perception, and for the ad buyer, there might be concern there.
Yeah, how will this work for the company's marketing strategy?
It's interesting. Elon Musk has definitely staked out a position that X is a platform for robust debate, free speech, the kinds of speech that might offend you. He wants that there. And that's the argument the company's making. By officially kind of allowing this, they are ensuring that people who can engage in this kind of speech. It's almost, you go back to the early day fights over free speech, I think of with the pornography years ago. They're taking kind of a lane here that a lot of the other social media platforms don't want to be near. You look at the likes of Meta and TikTok. This is the kind of stuff that they don't want to engage in.
Is that idea of a lane that others in the social media space don't want to be in, is that something that actually could be profitable for Elon Musk? I mean, it seems like when we watch what's happening with Twitter or X that it keeps losing value on some of the decisions that he's made under his leadership. But is this whole idea of we're in the lane no one else wants to be in possibly advantageous in the long run?
It's interesting when you talk about the platform being a free speech platform. Elon Musk has continually talked about that's the importance to him, that if he's going to lose money, then that's kind of the cost of doing business in this grander kind of societal thing that he's pursuing. It's almost not a charity, but definitely kind of a mission for him. That being said, he does want people engaged and on that platform. And if people are spending a lot of time looking at dirty pictures, they're going to be there.
Really interesting stuff. Tim Higgins, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our rapidly evolving and interconnected digital world is full of new technology, but with artificial intelligence advancing so quickly, it can feel incredibly overwhelming, especially for parents. That is the subject of an NBC News Now special town hall that's co-hosted by anchors Kate Snow and Savannah Sellers. Kate Snow gives us a preview.
Hi there, Ellison. Our special has a lot going on in it tonight. We are taking a closer look at how AI, social media, screens, new technologies are impacting our kids and parents and what they can do to help their children. We all know that AI is kind of the future. Everybody's talking about it. And with that comes a lot of possibility, but it also potentially comes with peril if we're not careful. There are a lot of ethical factors to consider with kids, like whether it's okay to use AI to help write an essay in school. But we also know that it can be used for negative things as well, like kids in classrooms making deep fake images of their classmates to bully them. We're talking about fake nude photos with real heads on the nude body. We asked a panel of experts, big picture, why is it important to talk about this? And here's what one of them told me. What should parents be talking about now with their kids, and what should kids be talking about with their parents when it comes to AI? How do we start that conversation?
Yeah, I think, and it's a really important one. And I actually don't think there's an age that's too young to start this conversation, because AI is really all around them. So I think first and foremost, kids need to know that AI isn't your friend. It's a tool. And these systems are going to seem more and more human-like the more advanced and sophisticated they get. But a tool is very different than a human person. So a tool we use to answer our questions. It can be a creative partner. It can help us understand the world. But we don't divulge secrets to an AI system.
So, Ellison, the point that she just made is really the reason why we decided to do this special. As she said, AI isn't your friend. It's a tool. A tool can be used for good or for bad, and it depends on how you're using it and how the people around you are using AI. And even though it may seem like a human is interacting with you, it is not, and kids have a hard time sometimes, especially younger kids, understanding that. It's why we're trying to help parents parent their kids around this and figure out how to even start those conversations early on and make a safe space for kids to talk to them about AI and so much else. Ellison?
It is such an important topic and one I know both Kate and Savannah are very passionate about. We look forward to seeing that, and you can watch it as well. Make sure you don't miss this one. Kate Snow and Savannah Sellers hosting the Town Hall special, Digital Parenting, Raising the AI Generation. That is tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on NBC News Now. Well, the electric vehicle race in the United States is heating up. The CEO of GM says they're betting big on electric despite a slowdown in sales. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello has a one-on-one with GM's CEO.
Rolling off the assembly line, 2 new electric vehicles on which General Motors is betting big. An EV version of its best-selling Silverado and the Equinox SUV.
We're executing, we're launching.
Despite a slowdown in EV sales across all brands, CEO Mary Barra says GM is all in on all electric.
We're committed to this technology, getting it right, and offering the consumer something that's going to make their life better.
All right. I'm driving?
Yeah, you're driving.
Barra had me drive the new Equinox EV, which she insists will be a game changer. An SUV with 17-inch displays, able to go 300 miles on a single charge, and with a $7,500 tax rebate priced to attract middle America.
This is the sweet spot for the market. People want a vehicle that's in this $30,000, $35,000 range.
Absolutely. That is where the bulk of new car purchases happen.
The new Silverado EV pickup has even more range, 440 miles. In all, GM offers 11 EV models. But while EVs make up 7.3% of all new vehicle sales in the U.S., sales growth has slowed. Prices are also dropping. The average now $55,000 and more popular in blue states than red.
Is that a political divide, a cultural divide that will hurt sales, especially of the Silverado EV?
Well, when we look at it, right next to the Silverado EV in that showroom at that dealer is going to be a Silverado that's gas-powered. So the consumer's going to get to choose what they want.
But consumers are both price and range sensitive.
Do you still envision to stop selling gas-powered vehicles by the mid-2030s, as you'd suggested at one point?
Well, again, we'll be guided by the customer. But in the end, I think, and we're seeing this around the globe, it will be led by what customers want. Because, again, a car is a very expensive purchase for people. So they need to get what they want and, what they're willing to pay for and what it represents.
The Equinox EV has tough competition from Tesla, Hyundai, Kia, and Nissan. And former President Trump's criticism of EVs is raising concerns among proponents. He could dismantle the tax incentives if elected.
Will you be just as committed to EVs if there's a Trump administration?
We will be just committed because we think in the long term they're better.
Our thanks to Tom, and thank you at home for watching. That does it for us tonight. I'm Ellison Barber. We will see you tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.